Isabel Munro was the picture-perfect bride, glowing with hope on her wedding day, while Blake Turner hid a dark secret beneath his charming smile. Just 72 hours after their honeymoon began, Isabel vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of mystery, betrayal, and danger that would shock an entire town. What really happened during those fateful days? The small coastal town of Havenport had always been known for its peaceful charm, a place where the ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and pine, and neighbors still waved to each other on morning walks. It was the kind of town where everyone knew your name, and stories of love and loss were shared over cups of coffee in cozy cafes. Yet on a bright August afternoon, something happened that would shatter that calm and capture the attention of the entire country. Isabel Munro was the kind of woman who seemed to belong in a storybook. At 28 years old, she had already built a reputation as a beloved art teacher at the local high school. Her students admired her gentle spirit and the way she brought color and creativity into their lives. Outside the classroom, Isabel was known for her warm smile and the quiet way she made everyone feel seen. She had grown up in Havenport, the daughter of 2 teachers, and had dreams of a life filled with love, laughter, and a family of her own. For years, she had quietly hoped to find the kind of partner who would understand and support her, someone she could share her life's journey with. Blake Turner seemed, on the surface, to be that person. At 34, Blake was a successful real estate developer, known for his charm and polished appearance. He had come to Havenport only a few years earlier, bringing with him an air of mystery that many found intriguing. His rise in the business world was swift, and with it came wealth and status that gave him access to social circles that most locals could only dream of. But for Blake, success had come at a cost. Beneath the surface was a man driven by ambition and secrets, a side few people ever glimpsed. Their story began about a year before the wedding, when Blake first walked into Isabel's art exhibition at the small community gallery. It was a meeting that seemed almost accidental, but quickly grew into something more. Isabel was drawn to Blake's confidence, while Blake found comfort in Isabel's gentle presence. The town whispered about their whirlwind romance, amazed at how quickly the two had become inseparable. Within months, Blake proposed on a rocky overlook at sunset, a moment captured in photographs that Isabel would later treasure. The wedding itself was nothing short of spectacular. Months of planning had culminated in a day that seemed perfect in every way. The ceremony took place in a historic chapel overlooking the ocean, where sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the guests. Isabel wore a custom-made lace gown, delicate and elegant, designed by a renowned local designer who had donated her talents for the special day. Blake waited at the altar, looking every bit the devoted groom, his eyes fixed on Isabel as she walked down the aisle. Friends and family gathered to celebrate, many traveling from distant states to witness the union. The reception was held at an oceanfront estate, where tables were adorned with white roses and flickering candles. String quartet played softly in the background as laughter and music filled the air. The couple's happiness seemed contagious, their smiles radiant as they danced their first dance under a sky twinkling with stars. Throughout the day, photographers captured every moment: the tearful embrace of Isabel's mother, the joyous toasts from friends, the playful antics of children chasing bubbles. Social media buzzed with excitement as guests shared photos and videos, creating a digital scrapbook of memories that would last forever. The hashtag #CheerTurnerWedding trended on Twitter, and within hours, people from around the world were commenting on the couple's apparent bliss. But beneath the surface of the picture-perfect wedding was a subtle tension few noticed. Isabel's closest friends would later reveal she had been nervous in the weeks leading up to the big day. There had been late-night phone calls and moments when she seemed distracted or worried. She never spoke openly about these feelings, but some sensed a hesitation in her usually bright demeanor. In private, Isabel had confided in her best friend that she wasn't sure if Blake was the man she thought he was. No one could have imagined how soon that uncertainty would turn into a nightmare. Just 3 days after the wedding, Blake and Isabel checked into the Ocean Ridge Resort to begin their honeymoon. The resort was a secluded paradise perched on cliffs overlooking the crashing waves below. It was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where they could escape from the world and start their new life together. Their suite was spacious and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of the ocean. It was the perfect setting for a romantic getaway, but something went terribly wrong. Early on the morning of the third day, Blake called the resort's front desk to report that Isabel was missing. According to him, he had left the suite for a brief walk to grab coffee, and when he returned, Isabel was nowhere to be found. Her suitcase was still in the room, untouched, and there were no signs of a struggle. The hotel staff reviewed security, footage that showed Blake leaving alone and returning alone. There was no record of Isabel leaving the building. The police launched an immediate investigation. Search parties combed the beach and surrounding cliffs. Helicopters scanned the nearby woods, but there was no trace of Isabel. News of her disappearance spread like wildfire. Reporters descended on Havenport, turning the quiet town into a hub of speculation and fear. Social media exploded with theories and prayers for her safe return. The community was stunned. How could a young woman disappear from a place so seemingly safe and idyllic? As the investigation unfolded, reporters uncovered small details that didn't add up. Blake's story remained consistent, but some inconsistencies began to surface. Hotel employees noted that the couple had seemed tense during their stay. Neighbors recalled overhearing raised voices from Blake's phone conversations in the days before the wedding, and Isabel's best friend made a startling claim. Isabel had been scared in the days leading up to her disappearance. The case became a national headline. What had seemed like a fairy tale had turned into a mystery that gripped the nation. People everywhere wondered what had happened during those final 72 hours, and whether Isabel's honeymoon was anything like the dream she had once imagined. As the days turned into weeks, the hope of finding Isabel alive began to fade. But the truth, hidden beneath layers of charm and secrecy, was only just beginning to surface. The picture-perfect bride had vanished, and the question haunting everyone was simple yet chilling. Was it really a honeymoon, or something far darker? Morning Isabel Monroe disappeared was unlike any other in Havenport. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft glow over the Ocean Ridge Resort, a place known for its luxury and privacy. Blake Turner was the first to report that Isabel was missing, and his version of events set the tone for what would become a sprawling investigation. According to Blake, he had left the couple's honeymoon suite early that morning to get coffee from the resort's cafe. He said he returned shortly after, only to find Isabel gone without a trace. At first glance, the story seemed plausible. Hotel staff confirmed Blake's departure and return times. Security cameras showed him leaving the building alone and coming back alone. But what was puzzling was that there was no sign of Isabel anywhere on the footage. No trace of her walking out of the hotel, no records of her checking out or calling for a taxi. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The resort was a sprawling property, but tightly controlled. Guests were required to show identification at the gate, and all movements were closely monitored. Despite this, no one had seen Isabel leave. No employee recalled seeing her that morning. No guests reported hearing or seeing anything unusual. It was baffling, and investigators were left with more questions than answers. The police launched a massive search operation. Teams combed the grounds of the resort, checked nearby hiking trails, and scanned the rugged cliffs overlooking the ocean. Drones equipped with thermal cameras flew over the area, hoping to catch any sign of the missing bride. Search and rescue dogs scoured the beaches and wooded areas. Volunteers from the town joined the efforts, walking door to door, handing out flyers, and speaking with anyone who might have seen something. Despite the scale of the search, there were no solid leads. Isabel's cell phone was never found. Her purse and personal belongings, apart from her suitcase in the room, were missing. Even her wedding ring was nowhere to be seen. It was as though she had disappeared without leaving a single clue behind. The case quickly drew the attention of the media. News crews arrived, setting up cameras outside the resort and police station. Reporters dug into every aspect of Isabel's life, painting a picture of a vibrant woman suddenly swallowed by mystery. Headlines questioned how a bride could disappear in the middle of a honeymoon, and social media buzzed with theories ranging from kidnapping to voluntary disappearance. Amid the frenzy, Blake became the center of public attention. He appeared in interviews looking distraught, his eyes swollen from sleepless nights. He insisted he had no idea where Isabel could be, and begged for anyone with information to come forward. His demeanor convinced many he was a grieving husband, desperate to find his wife. However, not everyone was convinced. Some neighbors and acquaintances recalled seeing Blake act strangely in the days leading up to the wedding. There were rumors about tense phone calls and heated conversations. Few guests who attended the wedding whispered that the couple had seemed distant during parts of the ceremony. Isabel's best friend, who had initially remained silent, finally spoke out, hinting at the cracks in their seemingly perfect relationship. As investigators delved deeper into Blake's background, they uncovered a series of troubling details. His real estate ventures, once considered highly successful, were riddled with debts and legal disputes. A closer look revealed that Blake had recently taken out multiple loans and was facing mounting financial pressure. Even more alarmingly, just 2 months before the wedding, Isabel had secured a substantial life insurance policy with Blake, listed as the sole beneficiary. This discovery raised questions. Why would Isabel, a cautious and thoughtful woman, take out such a policy shortly before marrying Blake? Was it a sign she feared something? Or was there another reason behind the sudden decision? Meanwhile, police expanded their search beyond the resort. Isabel's phone records showed her last activity hours before she disappeared. The phone pinged near a secluded cliffside area 2 miles from the hotel, a place known for its treacherous drops and strong currents. The timing was just after midnight, hours before Blake claimed to have last seen her. When search teams arrived at the cliff, they found a single strand of Isabel's hair tangled in the brush near the edge. The spot was remote and dangerous, raising questions about why Isabel would be there so late at night. Despite intensive efforts, no body or other evidence was recovered from the area. Divers scoured the waters below, but the ocean gave up no secrets. This only deepened the mystery. Was it possible Isabel had gone there on her own? Or had something sinister occurred? As the investigation unfolded, police turned their attention back to Blake. The inconsistencies in his story and the new evidence began to paint a different picture. Then came a breakthrough. A deleted text message on Blake's phone was recovered during a forensic examination. The message was from a woman named Vanessa Ward, Blake's ex-girlfriend, and was dated just 2 days before the wedding. The content of the message was chilling. Vanessa wrote, "It's almost done, then it's just us." The vague wording suggested a secret plan or agreement, but its meaning was unclear. When investigators questioned Vanessa, they learned she and Blake had maintained contact even after their breakup. Some described their relationship as complicated and volatile. The revelation sparked a new line of inquiry. Could Vanessa have been involved in Isabel's disappearance? Was Blake hiding something more than anyone had suspected? Before authorities could question Vanessa further, tragedy struck again. 3 days after the deleted message came to light, Vanessa was found dead in her apartment. The official cause was suicide, but the circumstances were suspicious. A note left behind referenced a plan gone wrong and being manipulated into silence. It hinted that Vanessa had been forced to take part in something against her will. This note became a critical piece of evidence. It suggested that Isabel's disappearance was not a simple case of a runaway bride or an accident, but part of a larger, darker plot. Investigators now believed that Blake and Vanessa had conspired to stage Isabel's disappearance, possibly to claim her life insurance or escape debts. But according to Vanessa's final words, Blake had crossed a line no one anticipated. As the search for Isabel continued, the community of Havenport watched in disbelief. The man who had once been seen as the perfect husband was now the prime suspect in a case that grew more disturbing by the day. The disappearance of the picture-perfect bride had spiraled into a chilling story of deception, betrayal, and possible murder. The question remained, what had really happened during those 72 hours? And where was Isabel Monroe? The answers were still out there, buried beneath layers of secrets, waiting to be uncovered. The deeper investigators dug into Isabel Monroe's life, the more complicated her story became. What had once seemed like a straightforward disappearance gradually revealed layers of secrets and tensions hidden beneath her bright smile. As police examined her relationships, financial dealings, and private moments, a troubling picture emerged, one that cast doubt on the fairy tale everyone thought they knew. Isabel had always been seen as a kind and gentle soul, someone who put others before herself. But those closest to her began to reveal a different side, one marked by anxiety and uncertainty. In the weeks leading up to her wedding, Isabel confided in a few trusted friends that she was uneasy about marrying Blake Turner. She had reservations about his true intentions and about the life they were rushing into. Isabel's best friend recalled moments when Isabel seemed distracted, even fearful. She had mentioned feeling trapped by the pressures of the wedding and the whirlwind romance that moved too quickly. But Isabel never openly voiced these fears to her family or the public. To them, she was the picture-perfect bride, glowing with happiness. No one could have imagined the doubts that clouded her thoughts as she prepared to say, "I do." Financial records added another layer of complexity. Isabel had taken out a large life insurance policy just 2 months before the wedding, listing Blake as the sole beneficiary. This was unusual, especially for someone who had no prior history of insuring her life or assets. Insurance experts noted that such policies were often taken out when the policyholder feared danger or wanted to secure financial stability for loved ones. It raised the question, Had Isabel sensed something was wrong? On the other side, Blake's financial situation was unraveling. He was struggling with debts and facing lawsuits connected to failed property developments. It appeared he had rushed the marriage, possibly hoping to stabilize his finances by gaining access to Isabel's assets. While no direct proof connected Blake to foul play yet, the timing and circumstances made him a person of strong interest to investigators. The investigation also focused heavily on Isabel's final movements. After her disappearance, a critical piece of evidence was her phone's last known location. At 4:16 a.m. on the morning she vanished, her phone signal was traced near a cliffside a few miles from the Ocean Ridge Resort. The cliff was infamous for its danger, with steep drops and unpredictable currents below. When search teams examined the site, they found a strand of Isabel's hair tangled in the brush, but nothing else. No footprints, no belongings, no signs of a struggle. This location was puzzling. Why would Isabel be there alone so late at night? Theories ranged from the tragic, an accidental fall, to the sinister, a forced confrontation. The mystery deepened when private security footage from a nearby vacation property captured a faint image of two figures walking along the cliff's edge just minutes before the phone pinged in the area. The lighting was poor, but one figure appeared to be wearing a white robe, similar to those given to guests at the resort. What happened on that cliff? Who were those two people? The questions weighed heavily on the investigators. Further complicating matters was the discovery of a deleted text message on Blake's phone, one that cast a shadow on his alibi. The message came from Vanessa Ward, Blake's ex-girlfriend, and was sent just 2 days before the wedding. The text read, "It's almost done, then it's just us." Investigators interpreted this cryptic message as evidence of a secret plan involving Blake and Vanessa. When police located Vanessa for questioning, she was evasive, refusing to provide clear answers. Her relationship with Blake was described as complicated, marked by jealousy, unresolved feelings, and occasional threats. Authorities soon learned Vanessa had been in close contact with Blake even after he began dating Isabel, fueling suspicions about her possible role in the disappearance. Before Vanessa could be thoroughly investigated, she was found dead in her apartment 3 days after the incriminating text was discovered. The official ruling was suicide, but the circumstances raised red flags. A note left behind revealed a desperate admission. Vanessa confessed to being involved in a plan to scare Isabel into leaving Blake with the money. According to the note, she had been manipulated and coerced, but never intended for things to escalate as they did. Her death sent shockwaves through the investigation. It suggested that Isabel's disappearance was no accident or simple runaway story. Instead, it pointed to a calculated plot gone horribly wrong. Meanwhile, police scrutinized Blake's actions in the days following Isabel's vanishing. Surveillance footage showed him leaving the hotel alone in the early morning and returning alone as well, but his behavior was inconsistent. Witnesses described him as anxious, sometimes evasive. Investigators found deleted calls and texts on his phone that he could not explain. When questioned about financial transactions, Blake gave contradictory answers, further undermining his credibility. Blake claimed ignorance of Vanessa's involvement, but his web of secrets grew tighter. As the pieces came together, it became clear he had motives beyond love: greed, fear, and desperation. The public watched closely as the case unfolded. News reports highlighted the stark contrast between Isabel's bright public persona and the shadowy realities uncovered by the investigation. Viewers were captivated by the story's twists: the missing bride, the mysterious cliff, the secret messages, and Vanessa's tragic end. The narrative shifted from a romantic disappearance to a dark tale of betrayal and deceit. Isabel's family struggled with the dual pain of loss and the harsh revelations about the man they thought was her soulmate. Friends mourned the woman they believed would have had a future filled with joy. And the town of Havenport grappled with the unsettling truth that evil could lurk beneath even the most beautiful surface. Despite the mounting evidence, the mystery of what happened during those final hours remained unsolved. Isabel's body was never found. No confession came from Blake. The cliffside, the phone ping, the deleted texts, all pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit neatly together. But the investigation had one undeniable conclusion. Isabel Monroe's disappearance was no accident, and the picture-perfect bride had been caught in a dangerous game she never saw coming. The true story was far more sinister than anyone had imagined, and the question of whether Isabel had been a victim of a crime, or something worse, hung heavily in the air. The case was far from closed, and the answers, hidden in shadows and secrets, waited to be uncovered. The investigation into Isabel Monroe's disappearance took an unexpected turn when a breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A local fisherman named Jonah Reed. Jonah had been out on his boat early one morning, navigating the misty waters near the cliffs where Isabel's phone last pinged. As he steered through the fog, his gaze caught something unusual floating near the rocky shoreline. A small, weathered box, half submerged and tangled in seaweed. Curious, he pulled the box aboard. Inside, wrapped in plastic to protect it from the salt water, were several personal items. Among them was a delicate silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant engraved with the initials I.M. There was also a crumpled piece of paper, soaked and barely legible, but enough to catch the attention of the police when Jonah turned over the box. This discovery reignited the search and provided fresh evidence that Isabel had indeed been in the area near the cliffs despite the lack of footprints or other signs on land. The necklace was unmistakably hers, one she had worn on the wedding day and throughout the honeymoon. The note, when carefully restored, appeared to be a fragment of a journal entry, a desperate plea written in Isabel's own handwriting. The note hinted at fear and betrayal, speaking of a plan that would change everything, and a choice that could cost more than life itself. It mentioned someone she trusted, and a dark secret she wished she never uncovered. The fragmented sentences were chilling, suggesting Isabel had been aware of danger and was trying to document it before it was too late. With this new evidence, investigators expanded their theory. They began to suspect that Isabel had uncovered something about Blake's life that he desperately wanted to keep hidden. The idea that her disappearance was linked to more than just financial motives gained traction. It seemed Blake's past held secrets that were unraveling under the pressure of their marriage. Digging deeper into Blake's history, detectives uncovered connections that linked him to shady business dealings and people involved in criminal activities. There were rumors of fraud, threats against those who crossed him, and a network of contacts who helped him cover his tracks.
Some of these associates were known to use intimidation and violence to protect their interests. One name kept resurfacing during the investigation: Marcus Gray, a shadowy figure with a reputation for being ruthless. Marcus had been involved in
real estate scams and was rumored to have ties to organized crime. His relationship with Blake was unclear, but financial records suggested large sums of money moved between them in the months before the wedding. When authorities attempted to question Marcus, he vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a trail of unanswered questions. The disappearance of such a key figure added another layer of mystery and frustration to the case. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of the hotel suite revealed subtle but suspicious clues. There were faint traces of soil on the floor near the balcony door, inconsistent with the usual cleaning routines. Police believed this soil might have come from the cliffs, indicating someone had carried something or someone through that door.
However, no fingerprints or DNA matched anyone other than Blake and Isabel, and the room showed no signs of forced entry or struggle. This led investigators to theorize that Isabel may have been taken from the suite by someone she knew and
trusted, which pointed back to Blake or an accomplice. The possibility of an abduction staged to look like a disappearance grew stronger. The town of Havenport was gripped by fear and suspicion. Neighbors who had once admired Blake now whispered, behind closed doors. Many struggled to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the growing evidence of deceit and possible violence. Community meetings were held to discuss safety, and the local police presence increased. Isabel's family, overwhelmed by grief and frustration, began to question the police's handling of the case. They hired a private investigator to uncover the truth and applied pressure on law enforcement to dig deeper into Blake's affairs. Their persistence brought additional witnesses forward, people who had seen Blake acting suspiciously around the time of the disappearance, but had been too afraid to speak before. One such witness was a housekeeper who worked at the Ocean Ridge Resort. She reported hearing loud voices and the sound of something heavy being moved in the hallway outside the couple's suite late on the night of Isabel's disappearance. Although she didn't see anyone, the noises disturbed her enough to mention it during the investigation. Another witness, a local bartender, recalled Blake visiting the bar alone the night before Isabel vanished. He seemed unusually tense and asked questions about private boat rentals and remote coves, places where someone could hide or dispose of evidence. As the pieces slowly fell into place, police focused on the theory that Isabel had been forcibly taken somewhere isolated. A remote island just off the coast of Havenport became a primary search site after satellite images showed a small boat tied to a hidden dock there. The boat's registration linked it to Blake, though he denied ever visiting the island. Teams scoured the island for days but found no signs of Isabel. Still, the presence of the boat suggested Blake had a secret hideaway, fueling suspicions that he might be hiding more than the truth. In an attempt to crack the case, police reviewed Blake's communications and social media activities. They found deleted messages and calls not only involving Vanessa Ward, but also unknown contacts who seemed intent on keeping the investigation from moving forward. These mysterious contacts sent warnings and threats to Blake, suggesting the case had entangled more people than anyone had realized. Meanwhile, forensic experts examined the strand of hair found at the cliffs. DNA tests revealed it had traces of a rare chemical used in industrial cleaning, a detail that puzzled investigators. Why would Isabel have been exposed to such a substance? Was it possible she had been in contact with someone involved in industries linked to Blake's business? The growing web of clues painted a picture of a woman caught in a dangerous situation, far beyond a typical missing person case. Isabel's disappearance was no longer seen as an isolated event, but part of a complex conspiracy involving money, power, and betrayal. Public interest surged as documentaries and news specials aired, showing the investigation's twists and turns. Viewers were captivated by the image of the perfect bride who vanished without a trace, replaced by a haunting mystery filled with dark secrets. As months passed, The search for Isabel continued with no definitive answers. Each new discovery raised more questions, and the case became a symbol of the hidden dangers lurking beneath seemingly idyllic lives. Havenport was forever changed. The cliffside where Isabel's hair was found became a somber landmark, a reminder of a love story gone tragically wrong. Friends and family clung to hope, even as the evidence suggested a grim reality. The question lingered in every mind. What truly happened to Isabel Monroe during those fateful 72 hours? Was she a victim of a calculated crime, or had she somehow escaped into a new life, hiding from a past too dangerous to confront? The truth remained elusive, hidden beneath layers of deception. But one thing was certain: the picture-perfect bride was gone, and the honeymoon had been a dark, deadly secret all along. As the investigation into Isabel Monroe's disappearance dragged on, frustration mounted on all sides. The police, the family, and the community were desperate for answers, but every lead seemed to bring them further into a maze of secrets and shadows. The once bright hope of finding Isabel alive was steadily replaced by the grim possibility that she might never be found. In the months that followed, the pressure on Blake Turner intensified. Under mounting scrutiny, Blake's public image unraveled. More inconsistencies appeared in his accounts, and his evasive behavior fueled speculation about his involvement. Legal experts warned that Blake was becoming the prime suspect in a possible murder investigation, despite the lack of a body or direct physical evidence linking him to a crime. Blake maintained his innocence, claiming that Isabel had left of her own free will. He said she had been unhappy and needed space, but these statements did little to ease the growing doubts. The community that had once admired the couple began to shun him, and his financial troubles worsened as lawsuits and debts piled up. Meanwhile, Isabel's family refused to give up. They launched a public campaign, appealing for anyone with information to come forward. They also pushed for advances in forensic technology to be applied to the case, hoping new methods might uncover something missed before. Their persistence paid off when a breakthrough came from an unexpected angle: digital forensics. A team of specialists analyzed Blake's phone and computer again, focusing on data recovery techniques. They discovered deleted files and messages hidden deep within encrypted folders, revealing conversations between Blake and an unknown accomplice. These messages hinted at plans to silence Isabel permanently. The tone was cold and calculating, discussing ways to make her disappear without leaving evidence. While the accomplice's identity remained a mystery, investigators believed it was someone close to Blake, possibly someone connected to Marcus Gray's network. The digital evidence shifted the investigation into a new phase. Police intensified efforts to locate this accomplice, scrutinizing Blake's contacts and financial transactions for clues. Surveillance of Blake's movements increased, and searches of his properties uncovered suspicious items: unregistered firearms, disguises, and large amounts of cash hidden in unlikely places. One particularly chilling discovery was a detailed map with routes marked out around Havenport and the surrounding islands, including the remote island where Blake's boat was found. The map showed possible escape routes, secret drop-off points, and hidden caches. It suggested premeditation and careful planning. At the same time, forensic teams re-examined the cliffside where Isabel's hair was found. Using new technology, they detected faint traces of blood mixed with soil. Though the quantity was small, it matched Isabel's DNA profile. This evidence strongly suggested she had been injured in that location. Experts hypothesized that Isabel may have been taken there against her will, injured during a struggle, but managed to escape briefly before vanishing again. The presence of the industrial chemical on the hair was revisited, with investigators considering the possibility that Isabel had been forcibly moved through an industrial site owned by one of Blake's business associates. The investigation revealed that Blake's connections extended into several legitimate and illegitimate enterprises, from construction companies to illicit smuggling rings. Authorities suspected Isabel had discovered these illegal activities, which may have led to her being targeted. Despite the grim findings, there were moments of hope. Several anonymous tips led search teams to new locations, but none resulted in Isabel's recovery. Each attempt added to the emotional toll on her family and friends, who clung to hope even as years passed. As the case drew national attention, a true crime podcast dedicated to the mystery of the picture-perfect bride gained popularity. The host interviewed experts, witnesses, and those close to the case, piecing together the timeline and exploring theories. The podcast brought fresh eyes and renewed interest, prompting additional tips and new leads for the police to follow. In a surprising development, a man came forward claiming to have information about Isabel's fate. He said he had been involved in Blake's illicit dealings, but wanted to come clean. According to his account, Isabel had confronted Blake after uncovering his criminal ties. In a panic, Blake and his accomplices had tried to intimidate her into silence. Things escalated, and Isabel was taken to a remote location. The man claimed Isabel was still alive when last seen, held against her will on a secluded property owned by an associate of Blake's. However, he had no knowledge of her current whereabouts, only that she was moved multiple times to avoid detection. This testimony sparked a new search operation, with police scouring properties linked to Blake's network. Though no concrete evidence emerged, the tip underscored the theory that Isabel's disappearance was part of a larger criminal conspiracy. Months later, Blake was arrested on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice related to his business dealings and attempts to cover up Isabel's disappearance. Though murder charges were not yet filed, authorities stated that the investigation was ongoing and that new evidence could lead to further accusations. The trial was a media spectacle, with prosecutors painting Blake as a manipulative man who used charm and lies to hide his dangerous secrets. Witnesses testified about his debts, threats, and the strange behavior surrounding the wedding and disappearance. Blake's defense argued lack of direct evidence and insisted he was innocent. Throughout the proceedings, the question on everyone's mind was the same. What happened to Isabel Monroe? Despite exhaustive efforts, her body was never found, and no one could say with certainty whether she was dead or alive. The mystery haunted the courtroom and the community alike. As the trial concluded, the jury returned a mixed verdict. Blake was convicted of financial crimes and conspiracy, but acquitted on charges related to Isabel's disappearance due to insufficient evidence. The verdict was met with frustration and heartbreak by Isabel's family and supporters, even as Blake faced prison time for his other offenses. The truth about Isabel's fate remained hidden. The case left a permanent scar on Havenport, a reminder of how appearances can deceive and how quickly love can turn to tragedy. In the years since, Isabel Monroe's story has become a cautionary tale about trust, betrayal, and the dark side of human nature. Memorials and vigils are held annually by those who remember the vibrant woman who vanished so mysteriously. The unanswered questions linger. Did Isabel survive, and start a new life? Was she a victim of a crime hidden deep in the shadows? Or did she suffer a fate never revealed? What is certain is that the picture-perfect bride was gone in 72 hours, and her honeymoon was far from what anyone expected. The story remains a haunting puzzle, one that continues to captivate, horrify, and mystify those who seek the truth. And until that truth emerges, Isabel Monroe's disappearance will remain one of the most chilling mysteries of our time.